Well, America was horrified by the scene that unfolded on Monday Night Football. Was Damar Hamlin went into cardiac arrest, and a whole entire stadium and country watched as rescue workers went to work trying to save his life. And we're bringing in John Stolness now, who you may be familiar with from the Quick Start podcast. You hear his work on here every week. And John brings up a very interesting and I think very important angle to this whole thing about being ready in these situations. And John, thanks for being here. And you shared a personal story. And why don't you just kind of share with everyone here what was on your heart to bring up?
Sure. Well, after the injury to the young man who I mean, it just by all accounts seems just like a wonderful guy. I was reminded of an incident that happened at one of my previous workplaces about 5 or 6 years ago, where a friend of mine, somebody I'd worked with for the better part of 10 years, collapsed and died of a heart attack in the newsroom in front of us. And I was the first one to him. I heard him coming up the stairs and opening the door right behind me, directly behind me. And I heard him run into a side room, and I could tell he was unwell. He was sick, and went to go see what was wrong, and he collapsed in front of me. And so I was the first person to him. I was holding him, lowering him to the ground as he was collapsing. And knowing that I didn't know what to do in that moment was exceedingly terrifying and frustrating. And I didn't know CPR. I hadn't gone through any CPR classes. I didn't know he was having a heart attack in that moment. And so I also didn't know, well, if I do CPR, would I be helping him? Would I be hurting him? I didn't know what to look for. And I also knew that we had a defibrillator in our office because I had seen a woman come in and she would check on it every year. She a couple of times showed me how to use it, but it had been a couple of years since she'd done that. And I will be honest, I wasn't paying close attention because who thinks that someone is going to come into your office and collapse and die of a heart attack at some point? And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where the defibrillator was. And if I had known where it was, it's not one of the new ones that you see now where they will basically walk you through it. They will tell you what to do, where to place the leads, when to shock and all those kinds of things. So I was I was frozen by indecision and I didn't know what to do. And eventually the paramedics arrived. It was about 15 minutes. But by that point, it had become pretty obvious that that it was going to be too late. And unfortunately, my coworker died.
How did you process that? You know, and I want to get into the mechanics of the importance of making sure we understand and know how to do these things. But how did you process that event after that? It seemed like a pretty traumatic thing to go through.
It was, and we had a counselor come in and talk to everyone in the newsroom because everybody saw this happening. They saw the paramedics come in, doing CPR, chest compressions, shocking our coworker over and over again, and we could tell that it wasn't going to be successful. So we obviously needed to talk to someone about it. So we sat down with a counselor, and you know, I do think that my faith helped me through that quite a bit. Knowing that, you know, God has a plan. He calls us home at different times for different reasons and for different purposes. I think I have a healthier view as I've gotten older of mortality and when it's our time, and that God is ultimately in control of all of it. So I think in a lot of ways that helped to compartmentalize it, for lack of a better word. But I have largely forgotten about it as the years have gone on, until something like this happens, and then you remember, and then it takes you back, and it dawned on me I can use this as an opportunity and maybe try and say something that some people should hear.
Yeah, I think it's a great reminder, and you know, honestly, I feel convicted about it because I don't think I would know what to do in an emergency situation in most cases. And like you said, if you don't know, you want to do something, but you're afraid that maybe you're going to make the situation worse because you don't really know what you're doing. And I think in America, we're just kind of spoiled with such great resources and great emergency crews. And there are a lot of people who are amazing and know how to do all these things. And you'll see a doctor rush onto a scene, happen to be the first one there, you know, great timing. So I think we're a little spoiled as a country with so many great services around us that we're not ready for these things.
And that's one of the things I noticed about what happened with Damar Hamlin. I mean, you had so many people out there so quickly, and the number of medical personnel at NFL games and the speed with which they can get out to someone who's hurt and get them to a hospital, and the equipment that they have on hand, they very likely saved his life. In any other instance, I think I saw somebody tweet that in any other spot where you have someone suffer this kind of an injury, they likely don't make it. The best places you could possibly be are in a hospital should this happen, or on a professional football field, are the two places you are most likely to survive something like this. And it just so happens that's exactly where he was.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I saw the tweets, and by the way, you should check this out if you haven't yet. Go over to John Stolnis's Twitter feed. But that's where I saw you detailing this story, and I thought to myself, what would I do at the dinner table? What would I do in my own home?
Mm-hmm.
I think we think of this happening a lot in public places, right? And we just had an example of that. But what happens? Would I be able to help my own kids? And you were encouraging people to go and get trained, and you can do it online, which I didn't even realize. I signed up for a Red Cross course after I saw your tweets. For $37, I signed up, and I can take it online, and I'm going to start doing that so I can learn it. But we often don't think, wow, this could happen in my home.
Right.
And I would just encourage people to think about their own children and their own families as well.
Right. We're dads, all three of us. And it hit home to me, too, once I had children. And I'm involved in my kids' trail life troop. And so as a leader, we're required to take a CPR class every 2 years because we are around kids so much. And even though I'm due to take it again this year, and if you're trained in using the defibrillator and the signs to watch out for, even as recently as having taken it 2 years ago, those skills and remembering what to do have faded a little bit for me. And so I'm looking forward to taking it again. And it is something you probably should take every couple of years so that you remember. So it becomes second nature. So you don't have to try and remember, what was the next step? Where do I attach this lead? They are cheap. You can go get a CPR class online. You can go to your county rec center. I'm sure they offer them all the times as well. And if your company doesn't have a defibrillator on hand, encourage them to get one, and please learn from me learn how to use it, because there should be someone in the building who knows how to use it at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. Great reminder. And one last thing I'll add here is that I don't think people realize how slow time is. Like 15 minutes is an eternity in a crisis situation. I mean, 5 minutes is an eternity in a crisis situation. I mean, every second counts in those moments. And so when you hear somebody say, well, it took 9 minutes to get there, you think, oh, that's pretty fast. No, not when someone's dying. 9 minutes is forever. And it's not obviously the emergency crew's fault. Like, they're coming from who knows how far away, and they've got other things going on. So it's tough. It's tough for them to get there. That's actually a pretty fast time. But in a crisis situation, that's a very long time. It's
one of the things they tell you, especially for heart issues. Time is heart muscle. And the sooner you can start CPR, the sooner you can defibrillate if need be, the more likely you are to save somebody's life. It does, and time it seems like an eternity for help to arrive if you don't know what to do. So the quicker you can act, the more likely you are to save a life, probably.
Well, yeah, John, a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that story. I know that's as Billy said, a traumatic one for you, but I think a very important one. And hopefully people will share this so that more people are ready if they unfortunately have to face one of these situations. So, John, thanks for sharing it.
You bet. Thanks, guys.